The first sign that my quiet, boring life was about to explode came not with a bang, but with a glitch on my radar. One moment I was sipping recycled coffee and watching dust devils dance across the Martian plains, and the next, my monitor lit up with a red blip so fast it nearly fried itself. Something massive had entered the atmosphere without authorization, without a transponder, and judging by the speed, without any intention of landing softly. "Unscheduled object detected," the computer said in that deadpan voice I'd grown to resent. "No kidding," I muttered, pulling on my exosuit. The impact hit seconds later, enough force to shake the outpost. I barely had time to grab my toolkit before jumping into the rover and heading toward the smoking crater. Normally, I'd call command, but communication had been down for days thanks to a solar flare. Typical. One real emergency in 5 years and no one around to see me be heroic. I reached the crash site and parked just on the edge of the blast radius. The ship, if you could call it that, looked like a dagger stabbed into the red dust, with shards of black metal protruding at odd angles. Flames licked at the edges, and something buzzed with a dying whine. I approached carefully, unsure if I'd find survivors, alien tech, or just an exploding power core. Then the hatch exploded open, and she fell out. 7 feet tall, silver blue skin, armored like a walking tank, and bleeding from a wound in her side. She hit the ground hard, rolled, and was on one knee in a blink, a jagged blade drawn and pointed directly at me. Her eyes, bright like plasma coils, locked onto mine. "Identify," she barked. I froze. "Ah, human. Earthborn? Non-threatening?" She blinked once, frowned, then promptly collapsed face first into the Martian dirt. I should have left. I really should have. But I didn't. Something about the sheer absurdity of the moment, the lone technician, rescuing an alien warrior from a downed starship, made me haul her into the rover. Her armor nearly broke the suspension. Back at the outpost, I dragged her to the med bay and did my best to patch her up using a combination of human supplies and a very sketchy translation app. Every few minutes she'd mutter something in her own language, all vowels and consonants grinding like metal, but she didn't wake. Not until I tried to remove her gauntlet to clean her wound. She snapped awake and had me pinned against the wall before I could blink. "You dare touch the bloodskin of Vaeltari, first blade of Zareth? Easy. I'm trying to help you, not strip you for parts." She looked around, saw the bandages, the 4 drip, the oxygen mask. Then her grip softened slightly. "You saved me?" "Well, yeah. Crashing into a planet tends to be bad for your health." She stepped back and gave me a slow, deliberate bow. "Then I owe you a life debt." "Great. So, you'll fix the antenna and I get a medal?" Her glowing eyes narrowed. "That is not the way of my people. I must repay you through the binding of bloodlines." I stared at her. "Come again?" "You have rescued me. I am honor-bound to carry your seed. We shall produce offspring worthy of both our lineages." I choked on my coffee. "I don't think that's necessary. It is tradition. You will comply. You don't just declare parenthood like it's a mission log entry." She tilted her head. "Do you reject the honor of being chosen?" I flailed for words. "I reject the weirdness of being chosen." Outside, the Martian wind howled through the dust, as if laughing at me. So there I was, stuck in an outpost with a heavily armed, honor-obsessed alien who thought babies were the best way to say thank you. And I had no idea how to tell her no, without getting sliced in half. I barricaded the lab door with a folding chair and 2 crates of dehydrated meal packs. It wouldn't stop her if she really wanted, and, let's face it, the woman was built like a battle cruiser, but it made me feel better. On the other side, Commander Vaeltari paced like a caged lioness, her armored boots thumping against the steel floor. "You must accept the right," she called through the door. "It is an honor." "It's a horrifying cultural misunderstanding," I yelled back. "We have coffee and conversation before children, not combat and conception." There was a long pause. "Do you wish to engage in combat first?" "No. That's not what, ugh, never mind." I slumped onto the floor and stared at the flickering ceiling light. My peaceful, quiet life maintaining abandoned outpost tech had turned into a hostage negotiation with an alien Valkyrie who thought I was her destiny. I considered sending out an emergency signal, but the comms array was still fried, and Valkyrie had, very helpfully, dismantled my transmitter to prevent interference with the right. She was taking this whole honor debt thing very seriously. I just wanted to make it through the week without being drafted into fatherhood by an alien sword wielder. Eventually, I had to leave the lab. I was out of food, low on water, and starting to feel like a dehydrated mushroom. When I cautiously opened the door, I found Valkyrie sitting cross-legged on the floor, polishing her blade. She looked up and gave a solemn nod. I have meditated. If you truly reject the right, I will not force it. Zareth code permits a counterdebt. Relief washed through me. That's great. Fantastic. Counterdebt. Love that. So, what's the alternative? You must assist me in retrieving my battle data core, she said, standing to her full, impressive height. It was ejected before the crash. Contains classified intel. If found by the enemy, it could doom my people. Ah. Of course. Spying, secrets, and the fate of an alien civilization. Just a normal Tuesday on Mars. Where is it? Approximately 22 kilometers east. Buried beneath the rocks. There may be scavengers. Possibly ambush predators. Great, I sighed. Let's take a nice, romantic death march across the desert instead of making babies. I'm in. We set out the next morning in the rover. Valkyrie refused to wear a seatbelt, said it was a symbol of cowardice. She stood in the open hatch, scanning the horizon with her glowing eyes like some kind of alien war goddess. About 10 kilometers in, things went predictably sideways. Sandstorm. Not your average breezy day, either. This one came screaming over the ridge like a living wall of grit and rage. The rover's sensors blinked red, then died. I slammed the brakes, and we hunkered down as the wind hit us with hurricane force. I told you we should have left at dusk, I shouted over the roar. You said, and I quote, it'll be fine. Valkyrie shouted back. You don't quote. You just paraphrase angrily. Visibility dropped to 0. I killed the engine and tried to keep the rover from flipping while Valkyrie activated her armor's shield emitter. It fizzled. Damaged. Of course. She gritted her teeth and leaned in close. My people would use a sandcrawler in these conditions. We have duct tape and sarcasm. With 0 visibility and no navigation, I had to improvise. Using the rover's limited manual control, I steer us toward the last GPS ping of the data core, relying on memory, instinct, and hope. When we finally broke through the edge of the storm 2 hours later, the rover was scraped to hell and I was choking on red dust, but we were alive. And then the ground exploded. We'd parked right on top of a trap. A sinkhole, rigged with some kind of proximity mine. The vehicle dropped half a meter, tilted hard, and threw both of us out into the sand. I hit first, rolling. Valkyrie landed in a crouch, already drawing her blade. Shapes emerged from the dust, 4, maybe 5 humanoids in scavenger armor. One of them held the glowing data core. You want this? He sneered, waving it. Valkyrie stepped forward. Give it to me, or I take your spine. And just like that, I knew we weren't walking out of this with words. The scavenger with the data core laughed. It was a harsh, metallic sound filtered through a cracked rebreather. His armor was cobbled together from scrap, human, alien, and something that looked suspiciously biological. His friends flanked him, weapons raised. Blasters, shock spears, a flamethrower. We were outnumbered, outgunned, and very much out of patience. Valkyrie didn't flinch. She stepped forward like a storm in slow motion, eyes glowing brighter, her armor rippling with reactive tendrils. Surrender the core, and I will permit you to crawl away. The leader barked a laugh and waved the core in the air. You think this glowing trinket matters? This little crystal is worth a fortune in the black markets on Europa. You can't even begin to. Veiltari moved. 1 second she was 10 feet away. The next, she was in the middle of them. Her blade hummed as it sliced through one scavenger's weapon arm, then pivoted into a spinning backhand that shattered a faceplate. Dust exploded around her as 2 bodies dropped, armor clattering on the rocks. I ducked behind a chunk of wreckage, heart hammering in my ears, and tried not to panic sweat through my suit. I'm just a technician, I whispered to myself. I fix toasters, I don't dodge bullets. Shots rang out. Sparks erupted from Veiltari's armor as she deflected a blaster bolt with the flat of her blade. She moved like liquid fury, but even she couldn't be everywhere. A scavenger circled behind her, raising a rifle. Without thinking, I hurled a wrench at his head. It hit the side of his helmet with a clang, just enough to make him miss. His bolt scorched the sand near Veiltari's feet. She spun, saw me standing exposed and weaponless, and snarled something in her own language, probably "Get down, you idiot." She grabbed the attacker and flung him toward me. He landed with a wet crunch 3 feet away. "Are all your males this suicidal?" she called. "Only when someone forgets to mention the traps and murder squads." The last 2 scavengers regrouped, standing shoulder to shoulder, the data core now clutched protectively between them. One activated a drone, an ugly little sphere with whirring rotors and a pulsing plasma core. It hovered above us, charging up a shot. I recognized the make, illegally modified from old Martian mining drones. Unstable, deadly, and easy to disable if you could reach the kill switch. Veiltari prepared to charge again, but her breathing was labored now. The damage from the crash, the storm, and the fight was catching up to her. She swayed slightly, blood dripping from a new slash in her side. They saw it too. The drone beeped and fired. Veiltari raised her blade, but she was too slow. I didn't think. I ran. I tackled her to the ground just as the plasma bolt exploded behind us. The heat singed my back, and my ears rang like struck bells. For a moment, we lay there, tangled in a heap, the Martian dust settling over us like ash. Then I scrambled up, grabbed a half-melted steel rod, and ran at the drone. "Hey! You overpriced blender!" It turned toward me. I swung the rod like a baseball bat, connecting with the drone's undercarriage. Sparks flew. The drone jerked and spun out of control, smashing into the ground with a shriek before erupting in a puff of smoke. The scavengers hesitated. Veiltari didn't. With a roar, she surged forward, grabbed one by the neck, and slammed him into the other. The data core flew through the air. Straight into my hands. Panting, covered in sweat, soot, and blood that wasn't all mine, I held it up like a trophy. "You guys lose." The remaining scavenger turned and bolted. Veiltari collapsed to one knee beside me, her armor flickering with system errors. She looked at me, face smeared with grit, eyes intense. "You fought." "Don't sound so surprised," I said, wheezing. "You are worthy." "Worthy of what?" Her voice dropped to a satisfied growl. "Siring an empire." I groaned. Not this again. But she was already grinning. Bloodied, bruised, and victorious, we had the core. Now we just had to survive the trip back. We limped back to the outpost beneath a bruised Martian sky, the rover barely hanging together and Veiltari patched up with duct tape, med gel, and sheer stubbornness. She insisted on cradling the data core like it was a newborn hatchling. I let her. She'd earned it. Plus, I was too busy trying not to pass out from adrenaline crash and secondhand blaster vapor inhalation. Inside the airlock, she collapsed onto the floor with a metallic thud. Her breathing was ragged, and her skin had gone from silver blue to a pale, shimmering gray. The med base scanner beeped wildly. I yanked off her chest plate and got to work. Her biology was bizarre, layered, regenerative, reactive, but somehow it made sense to me now. I'd seen her bleed, fight, save me. She wasn't just a warrior anymore. She was a person. "You're gonna be fine," I muttered, applying a bio-seal to the worst wound. She gritted her teeth but didn't scream. You are adequate with your hands. Thanks. Most people say that after dinner in a movie. She smirked through the pain. So, this is humor. Barely. The next 2 days passed in a blur of recovery, repairs, and awkward silence. Valtari stayed mostly in the med bay, healing, meditating, sharpening her blade until it hummed. I worked on restoring the comms array, fixing the rover, and trying very hard not to think about alien reproduction customs. Eventually, the antenna crackled to life, and I managed to send a compressed burst transmission to the orbiting relay. I didn't expect a reply so quickly, but 30 minutes later, a message came in. Zareth code, heavily encrypted. I decrypted what I could, and then brought it to her. She read the data silently, expression unreadable. Well? I asked. They have received the core, she said. My people are safe. For now. Good. Great. I rubbed the back of my neck. So, what happens now? She stood slowly, looking stronger than ever. My ship is destroyed. My mission is complete. I am no longer bound to remain here. Oh. I tried not to sound relieved or disappointed. That makes sense. She studied me. But I have another mission. One I must complete to fulfill my obligation. I froze. If this is about the baby thing again. You proved yourself, she interrupted. Not just in battle. In courage. In loyalty. In improvisation under duress. These are qualities we value. I folded my arms. Still not enough to make me the poster boy for intergalactic paternity. She tilted her head. You do not wish to propagate the genetic alliance between our species? Look, it's not that I'm against genetic alliances, but what would that even look like? A half-Martian, half-glowing-eyed sword prodigy who speaks only in threats. It would look strong, she said softly. For the first time, she sounded unsure. Vulnerable, even. And in that moment, I saw past the armor, past the warrior. She wasn't just repaying a debt. She was alone. Stranded. Maybe looking for something more than duty. Look, I said. If you're serious about this alliance thing, maybe we take it slow? Start with a meal that doesn't come in a ration tube. Maybe a walk outside without something trying to kill us. You know, civilized dating stuff? She considered this. Zareth do not date. Then consider this your first lesson in human diplomacy. A long silence. Then, slowly, she nodded. Very well. I will engage in your primitive courtship rituals. High praise, I deadpanned. She stepped closer, her expression softening. You may yet be worthy of more than one child. Let's get through dinner first. We ended up watching old Earth comedies on the Outpost projector that night. She didn't understand most of it, but laughed every time someone got hit with a pie. She even tried one. Didn't like the crust. Said it was unworthy of calories. A week later, a Zareth retrieval ship arrived. They offered her a new command post. She declined. She chose to stay. And I installed a second bed in the habitat. Just in case. Life on Mars was no longer quiet. Or normal. But it was ours. And as strange as it all started, I couldn't help but think, maybe the universe had a weird sense of humor. And maybe, just maybe, it wanted us to laugh with it.